And what I'm going to focus on now is more about the application process itself, how you apply. She talked about both need and merit-based scholarships, and often for merit-based scholarships in particular, you do have to apply. And even for some need-based scholarships, there's an application process as well, in addition to demonstrating some financial needs. So we want to make sure that you've got some tips to make sure that when you're filling out an application, you're doing the best possible job. We want you to be successful. I'm going to echo here on this slide just a few of the things Ginny talked about in terms of scholarship sources. As she said, there are lots of places to look: the school itself, the colleges and universities, even within that, programs and departments. Before that, always go to your guidance counselor. They are often our first point of contact to advertise a scholarship, because we can't always reach you directly, but we can get information to you via your high school counselor. There are also sometimes community organizations, religious, cultural, veteran organizations that offer scholarships. I got a small one through the US Postal Service because my grandfather was a letter carrier. Just start looking around, start asking, pay attention, and you'll find that there are scholarships everywhere. Also business, labor unions, and private foundations such as the Boettcher Foundation that I work for. This is one of those slides where I encourage you to get out your phone and take a quick picture of it. These are just a few potential online sources you could look at as you're searching for scholarships. By no means is this a comprehensive list. I'm sure you're all much more tech savvy than I am and could come up with hundreds more sites, but this could hopefully just get you started. But yeah, there are scholarships everywhere. Just start looking around, start Googling, start digging. Just as a real quick tip though, do not ever pay to search for scholarships. You can find them for free. Don't pay to have somebody else do it for you. Save your money for college. Okay. So now I'm going to transition into how you earn scholarships. And we're going to talk about that in two ways. One being what you can do while you're in school, and the other being how you earn them in terms of filling them out and doing a good job talking about yourself and why you deserve that scholarship. So while you're in school, especially for merit-based scholarships, the things that you want to focus on are what you see on this slide: your academics, community service, and extracurricular activities. And we lay them out this way to make it easy to remember that this is how you can focus on acing your scholarships if you focus on each of these areas. And we'll do a quick dig into each of those. So ACE, academics, the first one. Usually everybody immediately thinks you got to have good grades. And that's true, but it's really only part of the story. Scholarships in colleges are usually looking for something a little deeper than just the GPA number at the bottom of your transcript. They're looking for a strong academic record and a college prep curriculum, meaning they're looking for students who are showing that they're college ready, that they're taking some of those more challenging courses in high school and pushing themselves a little bit so that they're ready when they walk in the door. It could look better to a college or scholarship if you get a few B's in some of the more challenging classes than just getting straight A's in some of the easy classes. It's showing intellectual curiosity that you're in this for learning. They're also looking for 4 years of the core subjects. Most of your schools will take care of that, but basically it's just saying it's better to take care of all the core work that you can do in high school for free, rather than having to take classes in college that you could have taken for free in high school. Standardized testing is important. We know that's a new territory this year, with some schools going more test optional. Every school and college and scholarship program is different. I can't answer for all of them on who is test optional and who is not. So for everyone you're looking into, if you're curious about this, look on their website or ask the questions. If they do require or recommend a test score, it's great if you can take the test twice, if you have the ability to do so. I know that's not always an option right now. If you can only take the test once, that's fine. Just make sure you practice and plan ahead so that you perform as well on it as you possibly can for that one opportunity. Moving on to the C of ACE, community service. A lot of students will ask me at this point, what kinds of community service should I be doing? Or how many hours are you looking for? That's not the most important thing, is what you see on this slide. We're looking for the depth of commitment to that service, your length of participation in the activity, if you've demonstrated any leadership or initiative. Basically, we're looking for the quality of your service versus the quantity. So you're going to have more of an impact if you find a couple of service activities that are really meaningful to you and you continue to go back to them on a regular basis, volunteering there every month, for instance, rather than just doing a couple of hours here and a couple of hours there. That helps those organizations, but your impact is not as great as if you really focus on the things that matter to you. And that's something you can talk about in your application later as well. So again, we're looking for the quality of your service versus the quantity. Same thing with your extracurricular activities, the E of ACE. I'm not going to tell you you have to play a sport or you have to play a musical instrument. What's important is what you're passionate about. Find those activities that you love and keep going back to them and doing it in depth. You might end up having opportunities to do service through them, such as if you're in the band and your band volunteers to go and play music on a regular basis at a nursing home or something. You know, that combines your extracurricular and some service. So there are ways you can meld the two. The passion will allow you to do that. I do want to highlight on this, work is something that you should highlight on your application, whether there's a separate section for work or it's in extracurricular activities. You want to make sure that you let people know if you are working, because if you're doing that for any reason, such as to help supplement your family income, that's good for them to know. So now that you've been doing these things in high school, we're going to talk about ways you can talk about them in a way that lets your application stand out from the crowd. And my favorite tip on this is to, before you hit submit on your application, take a moment and shift your perspective. So it's really easy for us to think, in my high school, everyone knows what this club is. In my town, everyone knows what this organization is. That's great, but you need to pretend you're me or Ginny or somebody who isn't from your school, maybe doesn't know your community as well as you do. Have you made it abundantly clear what you're doing and what your unique contributions are, so that a complete stranger would get a good picture of you and why you're a good candidate? Like, I will give the example that when I was in high school, I was in a club called Colts in Action. How many of you are impressed by that? Probably no one, because you don't know what that is. And so you don't want that to come across in your application. You want to talk about what you do. So we'll give some examples of that coming up. And just the reason for that is because committees are not just looking for candidates who are competitive in terms of numbers, but who are compelling in terms of who they are. Like I said, it's about more than just the GPA number at the bottom of your transcript. We want to know who you are. What are your talents, your hobbies, your interests? What makes you unique? I will never talk about one of our Boettcher scholars being someone with good grades and test scores. I will talk about who they are, like Francis Bird Boy, who was so interested in birds. He used to volunteer tracking migratory patterns of birds while he was in high school. And when he went to college, he did a study abroad program in China where he studied nesting habits of owls. I mean, that passion, that through line, that's what makes him stand out in my mind. I don't know what his GPA and test score was. I know Francis. So we want to know you. So I'm going to give you some examples of how shifting your perspective and talking about yourself can really help on an application. So let's say on an application, I see food bank volunteer. Well, that's great, but it doesn't really tell me about who you are and what you contributed versus all the other food bank volunteers that might be in my applicant pool. Whereas this example provides a lot more detail. 20 hours per week, that's that length of participation we talked about. Coordinated a food basket distribution. That's leadership and initiative. They're not going to let somebody coordinate a food basket distribution if they're only there for one weekend. But if this is something you've been doing on a regular basis, they might give you an opportunity to demonstrate leadership in that way. Here's another example, student council. That seems pretty obvious. We all know what student council is. It's a great organization. But again, what makes an application stand out is what you contributed, such as in this example on the screen where it's chock full of leadership that this student demonstrated during their time on council. It's also important because of that you spend a good amount of time on your essays, because essays tell us the why, the how, the what behind your activities. So let's say on the resume section, you only had a few words to talk about what you did in those organizations, like the leadership one, just a few lines there. This is where you can tell us why you're involved in student council. What makes that important to you? Go into more detail about the things that you've demonstrated. Essays also give us an idea of your academic ability. So we talked about the ACE, the academics. Essays are a good example of your writing skills. So you want to make sure it's a good example of your writing as well. So proofread it, focus on fluency, but also be clear and concise. You have word limits, but word limits don't necessarily have to mean you sacrifice the quality. I'm going to go back a slide and give you an example. So let's say on this example that I told you was a good one with all this leadership, you've run into a word limit. Well, there are ways you can still get this across just being more concise. So instead of served as chair of the prom committee, that's 7 words, you could say chaired the prom committee. You've cut 3 words right there. You haven't sacrificed a thing in terms of your personal contribution. So it just can take a little bit of time in wordsmithing, but you don't have to give up the quality just because of word limits. Just continuing on with the essays, remember that they also are a chance for us to get to know you in terms of your personality, your motivations. They're designed to have you tell us something new about who you are and provide insight into your interests, your hobbies, etc. And let your voice show through. If you're a naturally funny person, that's okay. Let that show through in your essay. If you're a little more studious like I am, it's okay to let that be the tone of your essay. You don't have to be something you're not. So just make sure that your essays are a good opportunity to talk about who you are. I'm going to do just a couple more things, tell you a bit about our scholarship, and then we'll turn it over to questions. But also, when you're filling out an application, remember to present a professional product, meaning think about how it's going to look on the other end. Even as you're filling out a form, think about how you're filling it out and what I'm going to see. If you type your name in all lowercase letters, that's how it's going to show on my end. And so you want to make sure you're thinking through like sentence casing, punctuation, just anything that you type in is how it's going to show on our end. So you want to make sure it's a professional product, that you proofread, that you pay attention to directions and to deadlines. Best tip, beat the deadline. Do not wait until the very last minute to submit an application, because if you run into any tech glitches, you may not have time to get help from the organization before it's time to submit. So try to submit the day before, at least a few hours before, so that you have a chance to make sure that everything has gone through without any hiccups. And keep copies of everything. You might want to have a record of what you submitted. You might want to keep a copy of that essay in case you might be able to use parts of it again. Never just copy and paste an essay directly. You always have to tweak it for the application you're using, but you could use some of the same framework. So just keep copies of everything. This is another slide I want you all to take a picture of, if you would. This presentation that I've given today is part of a longer presentation that I usually give, where I go over some of those things, but also in more depth, talk about letters of recommendation, talk about interview tips. And so we have some webinars coming up that if you'd like to hear more about it, you can register via our website for any of these webinars. If you cannot attend one of the webinars, we have a video version, a somewhat abbreviated version on our website. So the information is out there for you if you need it. I'm just gonna keep going real quick for timing purposes, but I'll be happy to put the link in the chat later when we get going. And just tell you a little bit about the Boettcher Scholarship, which is based on Colorado students, and it's for Colorado colleges. So it is one of Colorado's oldest and most prestigious merit-based scholarships, created with the intent of keeping Colorado's best and brightest students in state for their education. So the idea is to keep students at these fantastic universities in our backyard, rather than them feeling like they had to leave the state. The founders felt like there was an unnecessary brain drain happening, and so they wanted to make this opportunity available. Scholarships, we award 50 of them annually, and they can be used at any 4-year college or university in the state, public or private. We have now moved to a model where there are two funding models. So depending on where the student opts to go to school, our scholarship will either cover the entirety of their tuition and fees or the entirety of the cost of attendance. And a full list of those those institutions can be found on our website. Students can also apply for additional grants to help supplement studying abroad or doing additional enrichment. However, we're proud that our program is more than just a check. It is a program that connects scholars with other scholars and alumni across campuses as well as on the campus. And we provide opportunities to find internships or research opportunities or to interact with alumni and community leaders through roundtables and other opportunities like that. If you are a Colorado high school senior, you can apply for our scholarship if you are graduating this year and have lived here for at least 2 years, your full junior and senior year of high school, and are a citizen, legal resident, or lawfully present, such as through DACA, or meet the requirements and have started those application processes. Please email us if you have any questions about your eligibility. What we are looking for are students who demonstrate superior scholastic ability, intellectual curiosity, leadership, service. Hopefully this is all sounding familiar. We're looking for ACE, all those things that I already talked to you about, exactly what we covered. And we're also looking for outstanding character, and that's the stuff that's going to show through in your essays or your letters of recommendation. And just to let you know, if you are a senior and you're interested in applying, you can do so now via our website. And the application is due November 1 at 5 p.m., but hopefully you'll all be submitting earlier than that, possibly I'll say October 30th, so you can enjoy Halloween if that's something you choose to participate in, so that you can enjoy your Halloween. And also that way you have an opportunity to ask questions if you have any trouble. And this is just to let you know, we have multiple phases of the selection process, but I will go ahead and round this out. One more slide you can take a picture of that on our website. We also provide a resource guide that will allow you to access additional support and opportunities. It has lists of where you can find more scholarships. It has little charts that will help you break down your activities. So this is available on our website as well. Okay. And with that, I think that is, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting how many resource slides I have. This is a book that a couple of my colleagues have written. We have provided a copy to every high school in the state, so your counselor should have a copy, or you can purchase it online for just about $10 if you prefer to have a copy of your own. Has great annotated examples of essays. So, okay. I'm officially going to say I'm done with that so that we have a good 10 minutes to allow students to answer questions. So I will stop sharing my screen and let's see. I think we are okay with letting students raise their hand, I believe, and we can have you come off mute once we call on you. It's sometimes helpful to do that so that other students can benefit from hearing your questions. Though if there is anything that's a little more private, you can also message us in the chat. But does anybody have any questions? You've solved all the world's problems, Ginny.
Hello. Hi, this is Jamila.
Hi, Jamila.
I have a question, but it's a little bit off the topic. It's about the FAFSA and about the income reporting. So what kind of income are they asking? Because there is 4 different types of income. Family income, it's gross income, net income, taxable income, and adjusted gross income. When they're asking for income, what kind of income are they asking for?
My best recommendation is to speak with, so I don't work in an office of financial aid, that's need-based aid. Stephanie, I'm not sure if you're able to speak to that extensively, but my best recommendation, rather than give you inaccurate information since I'm not currently looking at the FAFSA, is to either talk to your high school counselor or reach out to a school to which you are applying or your student is applying and ask their office of financial aid. They are not a scary group of people. They certainly aren't at Elon. And I would encourage you to reach out to really any office of financial aid, and they would be able to help kind of walk you through that process. I know that FAFSA.gov also has a pretty strong resource guide on how to fill it out. So that may also be a really good starting place. I just unfortunately don't feel comfortable answering that question with certainty at this point. So sorry.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I will reach for them.
Thank you. I see, I apologize if I mispronounce anything. The name I'm seeing on the screen is Haverin. You want to go ahead and go off? Thank you.
That'll work. Hey, quickly, obviously I'm not a student, so I feel like I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to say thank you very much to Boettcher for what you do. We're in Carbondale, so Roaring Fork High School, 400 kids that you have recognized that you've recognized some of these kids at this tiny school has really helped me affirm that my son's at the right school, being in a public school with mixed opportunities for kids and income, et cetera. So I think I'll stop at that. I did have a question, but I can chat with you. I'll try not to break down on everybody. Thank you very much, really, for what you do.
Thank you. That is, we do get some really good applicants out of Roaring Fork, so that's great. Yeah. I think Jill was next. Jill, if you want to come off.
Hi, and I'll be quick as well. If you could just very quickly, since I was trying to frantically take notes, can you just give one more quick definition between the difference of need blind and need aware, so I have it correct in my notes?
Yeah, of course. So need blind means an institution does not take into consideration a student's ability or a family's ability to pay. Need aware means that they do. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I see Areli. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but go ahead and come off mute and let us know your question.
Hi, my question was what type of scholarships do I qualify for depending on what type of GPA level I have?
It can all depend. Every scholarship has different requirements, and require different things in terms of GPA. For instance, our scholarship does not have a minimum GPA requirement, but some do. So I think as Ginny was mentioning, sometimes the best thing is to just look and start asking questions. In fact, that's good advice for anything. Every scholarship is different in terms of what they're looking for, GPA requirements, whether or not they're test optional, all sorts of things. So any school that you're looking for, definitely, or you're interested in, look at their website, contact them, ask them for any information about scholarships, whether merit-based, departmental, need-based, et cetera. Look for, you could maybe do a Google search for scholarships as well. And one of the sites, I'll go ahead and pop it in the chat here, that I would consider looking at is fastweb.com. I'm typing it as I go. My understanding about fastweb.com is that you can go on and create kind of a profile about yourself, and then it helps find scholarships that are a match for you. So it kind of is like, oh, based on where you live in Colorado, so you might be eligible for Colorado scholarships. Here's your GPA. Here are some that are maybe for students in that range or something like that. It might help you narrow your search. And also ask your high school guidance counselor. I bet they have a wealth of information as well.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I see Bailey has raised their hand. Bailey, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So I was wondering what would be a good time, like in the application process, to like begin applying for scholarships? Like right now I'm a junior. Should I start looking at that like now or more into my senior year?
Yeah, so I recommend looking at scholarships, developing your list. Junior year is a great year to target those programs, to develop whatever list format you would like. I know a lot of students have success with like an Excel spreadsheet, because then you can really keep track of lots of different things. But if pen and paper is your way to go, I think that's a great thing to do. I would use junior year to target your list. Most scholarship applications will not open until a student's senior year. That's not every scholarship. And that's why I think it's really important to develop a list and keep track of dates. A lot of institutional scholarships, because an institution, and this is again, in the weeds, I'm sorry. Institutions are not supposed to admit students prior to their senior year, so they're not really supposed to be offering scholarships prior to your senior year of high school. So institutional scholarships that you would get from a college, likely are not going to happen or require an application until your senior year. Community foundations may be different. They may be looking at applications freshman, sophomore, junior year. So make a list. Do a lot of research. The more information you have and the easier it is to keep track of dates, the better off you'll be through this process. Stephanie, do you have anything to add?
No, I was going to echo that. In my experience, most scholarships, not all, but most, will probably fall in the senior year. But it's definitely a great idea to be looking now. You might find one that you can apply for now, but if not, as she said, you can start making lists. You can start maybe even, this could help writing down your activities that we talked about. What are the things you've done? What are the leadership positions you've held? What have you contributed? So that when you are in your senior year and you're ready to start applying, you don't have to be sitting there racking your brain. You've already started some of that pre-work so that you're primed and ready to go when those applications do open up. And as she said, if you've got a timeline of when they're open and available, you can start applying for them in a way that allows you to do it at your own pace throughout your senior year. So that was great advice. Other questions? No, I'm not seeing anything in the chat unless anybody else is.
This is Carrie again. I did put a couple questions. You said taking the SAT twice. What's the earliest you suggest? We don't want to overdo this process. My son's at
Oh no, yeah, you don't want to overdo it. I know. I think it's kind of a personal choice. I know most schools provide an opportunity for all students to take a standardized test in their high school, which they should do. And then if a student is able to take it maybe over the summer or early fall a second time, that's great. But the timeline will all depend on the schools. For instance, the Boettcher scholarship is a pretty early application. So if students want to take a test a second time, for us, it has to be done in the summer or the early fall because our application deadline is so early in November 1. So, but if a student is applying for a school and the school doesn't need the SAT test scores until later in the fall or the winter, the student can take it at a time that works for them. It's completely optional. No student has to take it multiple times if they don't need to. It's just sometimes a student tends to do a little better if they've been through the process once and they're like, okay, I got it. I know how this works. But like I said, if you can't take it a second time for any reason, such as COVID limiting the amount of options available to you, that's absolutely fine. First of all of us understand this context. We know it's been a tough couple of years. We're taking that into account. But also just go ahead and prepare and practice and be ready so that when you do sit down in the test, whether it's your first, second, whatever time, you're as prepared as possible to do your absolute best on it.
Quick follow-up question is, what do you think about those SAT prep programs out there that I've heard of?
They're good. I'm sure, I know not every student has access to them. I think you can do it without doing an ACT or SAT test prep. For instance, I wasn't able to do that when I was in high school. I went to the library and found a book that was how to take the SAT, and it just gave some great tips. And that was all I needed. I was bad and didn't read the math section, so my math score stayed stagnant, but my English score went through the roof the second time I took it because I just took the time to read that book and prepare. So it doesn't have to be a formal test prep. Sometimes it could just be going on that test website and looking at their resources and their practice questions and just kind of getting into that. So I don't think it has to be formal or cost a lot of money to prepare for the test.
Those books are so effective in many ways. Sometimes those test prep programs can be helpful for students who are not necessarily looking to master the test process or anything. They're looking to master their own anxiety around the test. I never recommend those programs for anyone, to be honest, because they are cost prohibitive. in many cases. But if a student is feeling tremendous stress and tremendous anxiety around them, then sometimes if there's one geared towards addressing specifically that, then those can be helpful. But those tests are tests that you can study for and easily using a workbook. And looking at the testing, looking at testing strategies and using those. Traditionally, test scores increase 100 or 200 points from test 1 to test 2. And that's about how much those programs can also say they can increase the score. So there's not, you learn almost just as much, I think. This is very personal opinion, but I think you learn just as much from just the experience of taking the test twice as you would from somebody telling you those strategies that you couldn't learn from a book. Hopefully that's helpful.
Great.
All right. And I want to be mindful of our time. I think we're at past time now, correct?
Yeah, we are. I just want to really thank both Jenny and Stephanie for this presentation today. I think it was amazing, and thank the parents for joining us for this first seminar of the day. I think we're free to leave. Round of applause for them.
Thank you.
Thank
you for
you
letting us
both.
be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Are you talking about me again?
Yeah, sorry.
I was just telling my husband, like, that was amazingly packed with information. I've done some of these before through your team. They did a great series. And yeah, I said I was going to do laundry and multitask, and there was no opportunity. So thanks a lot. I'll have to do that later. Thank you guys. You were great. Again, all you do for kids, our students, our youth, we're very fortunate we have a future. Given climate change, et cetera. I won't go there, but thank you again.
Thank you so much. That was nice. I'm glad it was helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Carrie, what's next?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
I just started moving people.
That took a long time.
That's on the recording too. This is happening.
Yeah.
This is gonna be on your outtakes. This is gonna...
Thank you, ladies.